welcome to Cooler Than Homework, a Disney Channel original movie podcast. I'm Nicole Sweeney, and the best birthday present I've ever received was a hand-painted sign with "It's 5 o'clock somewhere" misspelled.
I am Matthew Gatos, and the worst birthday gift I've ever received is a clock that has 12 different mustaches on it instead of numbers. It never got hung up.
My name is Marines, and the worst birthday gift that I ever received was a note on a disposable paper plate.
And I'm Sarah Riley, and the worst birthday gift I've ever received is a capsule from a bowling alley vending machine.
Wow.
What was in it?
I don't even remember. Probably like a sticky hand or maybe a plastic ring. It was given to me by the boy who had a crush on me in first grade. So, sorry, Aaron.
This week, we are talking about the 13th year. And Mari is going to tell us how close Sari was to her plot guess.
You got mermaids.
Mermaids!
You did it.
That was my first and one of my only notes of this. Mermaids, all caps.
And honestly, like the too long didn't read version of my plot synopsis is a boy is actually a merman. And that's it. But the long version is that we start with a mermaid who is like happily swimming around with her baby. And I can honestly say that I've never thought about like infant mermaids and like the logistics of carrying them underwater, and then like they would have to be taught to swim like you teach like toddlers to walk, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I thought about this for a long time.
I haven't, and so now I'm going through what I assume you went through, like just imagining a merbaby floating there and the mom being like, move, just waiting for it to do something, but it's kind of like tumbling around in the water.
It's very cute to think about.
How much is the baby inheriting the like innate ability to, live in the ocean of a fish, or the innate uselessness of a human baby? Like,
right. Well, and this movie wants to think probably uselessness because she's carrying him, and also the way that I interpreted this is that like she's spotted by a fisherman and she basically has to dump the baby to get away. I don't know if anybody has any other like conclusions, but she abandons the baby because she's been spotted by this fisherman named Mr. Wheatley, and I guess he's slowing her down or something. I honestly don't know. She drops the baby off on a stranger's boat, and the boat owners find the baby and decide to keep him and adopt him and name him Cody. So we fast forward 13 years, and Cody is helping on his parents' boat, and he is also part of the swim team at school. We get an extended opening sequence of Cody swimming and running to his meet because he's late. He makes it to the swim meet, but he still comes in second to a dirtbag. On the plus side, Cody has a girlfriend named Sam. She's very cute, and his swim team makes it to the state finals. He also saves the tuba player from drowning because the kid, Jess Wheatley, accidentally falls into a pool. At school, Cody is kind of like a big man on campus. He's a popular kid, but he also toes this weird line of almost kind of being like a mean boy, but not quite as bad as the other kid. It was a little touch and go for me. I was like, is he a mean kid? Is he not? But I think the point is that he's kind of somewhere in the middle. In his biology class, they are conveniently starting a lesson on marine biology, and Cody is paired with a nerdy Jess who almost drowned for a project. Jess wants to start working on it right away, but Cody's birthday party is the next day, and he invites Jess offhandedly. Jess does show up to the party, but the mean boy makes fun of him, and Cody only lightly protests. After his 13th birthday, Cody starts to notice weird things happening. He accidentally zaps his alarm clock with electricity from his fingers. He gets a milk carton stuck to his hands. He can't stop drinking water. He's having weird dreams about bright lights underwater. So Cody turns to Jess for help after they struck up a previous truce on the basis promised that Jess was going to help Cody pass biology, and Cody was going to teach Jess to swim. Jess consults his dad, who is Mr. Wheatley, the fisherman from the beginning, and who has become obsessed with mermaids since he spotted Cody's mom 13 years ago. And there's another little sequence where Jess is running tests to determine what's happening with Cody and Cody's abilities. So he can generate electricity, he can talk to fish, he can climb walls with sticky, like Spider-Man kind of thing. He can swim really fast, and sometimes when he gets wet, scales appear on his arms. So Jess is like, the signs, I don't know what they're pointing to. But they conclude that he is indeed a merman. There's a bit of back and forth with Cody's parents about whether or not they believe him, and when they finally do believe him, what to do about it. They agree, though, that Cody should definitely not get into water in front of lots of people. Cody can't resist, though, especially as his rivalry with the mean boy kind of ramps up and state finals approaches. He sneaks out of his house and swims in the meet, winning by a lot and breaking a state record. But the water causes his fins to appear, and both the mean boy and Mr. Wheatley notice. At home, Cody tries to calm his parents down by saying that no one noticed anything, but then Jess shows up with the news that everybody's talking about Cody, and then Sam shows up and faints at the sight of Cody's fins. When she comes to, they all ask her to please keep the whole mermaid thing a secret, and she agrees to, but she's also weirded out by the whole merman thing and is like, I can't do this, and bails. The next day, Cody goes for a swim and meets his mermaid mom. Mr. Wheatley sees them again this time, and so the mermaid mom swims away. Cody calls Sam and they kiss and make up, and then he introduces Sam to his mermaid mom. The touching moment is interrupted by Cody suddenly writhing in pain. He sends Sam to get his parents, and we watch as his feet turn into flippers, and I hated the sight of them. They were extra thick and rubbery, and I just did not want to look at it in the eye. Mr. Wheatley grabs Cody and kind of helps him, but mostly is using him as bait to capture the mermaid mom. Mr. Wheatley gets the mermaid mom in a net, and Cody begs Jess to help, so Jess jumps in the water with a knife, finding that his swimming lessons paid off, and frees mermaid mom. Unfortunately, his leg gets caught in the net in the process, and he's dragged underwater. Cody manages to get in the water and get Jess out, but he isn't breathing. Cody's mom and dad show up, Sam shows up, and they perform CPR, but Jess still isn't breathing, so Cody uses his eel electricity to zap Jess's heart back, and it seemed really risky. Honestly, I had so many questions about the voltage used, because Jess doesn't his body doesn't even move, but apparently it was enough electricity to bring him back to life.
And doing it twice so quickly is what? Yep. You don't just put more electricity if it doesn't work.
He also destroyed a scoreboard earlier.
The point is that it was really risky, but Jess lives. The mermaid mom is back and looking at everyone meaningfully, so Cody translates that he has to go with her because she's the only one who can help him with his changes. Cody's adoptive mom is very sad, but the moms share an oddly touching moment that is mostly done all via telepathy, and mermaid mom promises to have Cody back before school starts again. I was not aware that school had ended, but it's all cool. Cody says goodbye to everyone and swims off with his mermaid mom. The end.
That is a very good point about school ending. As if the state swim meet marked the end of the school year.
Yes. The classical conclusion to the school year, the state swim meet.
Everyone goes out, watches the swimmers, and then it's happy summer.
Never goes back to school.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, where is this cast now?
Well, mostly I know the answer to that. As usual, some people are missing or haven't done anything since this, so we don't know what they're doing. But there are some recognizable people in this cast. We'll start off with the director, who is Dwayne Dunham. He directed not only the movie Little Giants, which makes sense because some of the people in this movie are also in Little Giants, but he also directed Homeward Bound, as well as Halloween Town, and some other DCOMs that I can't mention because we haven't watched them yet.
Oh, man. This man directed my childhood.
Yeah. And more interestingly, he also was one of the editors of Return of the Jedi.
Oh, weird.
That is interesting. The way you said interestingly, I was like, oh no, this could go anywhere.
No, he like directed a bunch of children's things, but then he was like in the editing department of Return of the Jedi and like Indiana Jones and Twin Peaks and a bunch of not kid things. Then we have our star of the movie, Cody Griffin, played by, I didn't write this down. Why did I not write his name down? Because his name is awesome.
Oh, yeah, his name's very weird. That I did see.
His name is Ches Starbuck, and he has, I think what we have come to find is maybe the best outcome of all child stars on this podcast. He's a happy dad on Instagram.
Aww.
And he's
Yes.
a carpenter, he's an artist, and he just seems like a happy family man with a cute kid with a delightful Instagram where he shows off his art and his family and his carpentry.
We love a decom kid turned Instagram parent.
Yeah, he's just a big beefy dad. That's what he is.
I love it.
And he was interviewed a few years ago saying he'd be down to like play the dad in a sequel to the 13th Year.
Yes.
Wow.
And nobody has made this yet.
Right.
Maybe that's the culmination of this podcast is like once we're done talking about all the decoms, we start making our own.
Yes, we launch a Kickstarter to make the sequel to the 13th Year.
The 14th Year. So next I have what I thought was the most recognizable face in the movie, but apparently not to all of us. We have the dad, Whit Griffin, played by Dave Coulier, who I think 3 of the 4 of us recognized as Uncle Joey from Full House.
Yes.
Literally all he is.
Yeah.
I've never seen this man in my life.
Are you sorry to that man, Sari?
But when we were watching, this is an interruption. I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, Matt. But one of the random fishermen who is uncredited, I think, is Scully from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And I yelled from the couch as I was watching. I was like, I recognize someone, finally. And I was watching with my partner, and she turned to me and was like, you mean you didn't recognize Uncle Joey? And I was like, no, I've got to send an email. I don't know what words you're saying, but I've got to send an email because I recognize someone. So she too was appalled that I didn't recognize this man, but I'm sorry.
Somehow Sari has never seen an episode of Full House.
No.
Or Fuller House, because this man has been playing Uncle Joey for 30 years. But he also does a lot of voice acting in just about everything from Robot Chicken to American Dad to Muppet Babies. So you've probably heard his voice in something as well, even if you don't recognize his very, very recognizable face. The mom, Sharon Griffin, is played by Lisa Stahl, who was on Baywatch, as well as playing the ex-girlfriend in George Michael's Careless Whisper music video. And she also plays the ex-girlfriend in Jerry Maguire. So that was who she was in the 90s, was just typecast as the ex-girlfriend. But the most recent information I could find out about her is that she was running a photography studio in Los Angeles, but all of the websites for that company seem to be broken, so I don't know how well they're doing right now.
Oh, no.
Yeah. If you can find Sullivan Studios in Los Angeles, you can hire the mom from 13th Year to take your photography stuff. So
Free advertising for her struggling business.
yeah. Next up, we have the girlfriend, Sam, in this movie, played by Courtney Draper. She did some other child acting, which we also can't talk about because we're going to talk about it in the future. Hint, hint. But she is now a voice actor. Mostly, she's also done other human acting, but most famously, she has recently voiced Elizabeth in the video game BioShock Infinite.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is like a big starring role in that game.
Yeah, I know that one too.
Yeah.
She was also on an episode of Veronica Mars as living on like a commune.
See, it's the thing is like I looked up her roles and she looks very familiar to me as like child actor, but none of her other roles like jumped out at me. So I'm like, oh, you just somehow existed in my brain.
Nobody saw, I think the name of the show was like The Jersey or something. It was a Disney show as well. And the whole premise was like a magic jersey that they put on. And when they put it on, they would like become famous athletes.
This sounds very familiar.
So then the famous athletes were like guest starring on each episode and they were very bad actors. And it is a very bad show as I remember it. But I watched it a lot.
I had completely blocked that show out of my memory, but it just rushed back as you started describing it. I was like, that sounds fake. Oh, wait, no, I remember everything. We have the friend, Jess Wheatley, in this, played by Justin John Ross, and he is one of the people I could not find a shred of like evidence that he still exists anywhere in the universe anymore. I don't know what he's up to. I found someone who I thought might have been him, and if it is him, he's led a very interesting life, but I have very, very little evidence to prove that it's him, so I'm not going to put that theory out there on the internet for people.
All right.
But I will continue to do some searching, and if it turns out to be him, I promise you I will deliver that news here on this podcast, because it would be the most interesting Where Are They Now ever.
So tune in for the hot goss of Matt's gossip.
You have to listen to every episode of this podcast on the chance that I might reveal where that guy is now. But his dad in the movie, Jess's dad, Big John, as they call him, is played by Brent Briscoe, who is just in every single thing you've ever seen. He's very recognizable. He's in The Dark Knight Rises. He's in Spider-Man 2. He's in National Treasure. He's in Desperate Housewives. He's in CSI. And he's also JJ of JJ's Diner on Parks and Recreation.
Oh, wow. He's just so generic that I did not recognize his face, but I feel bad because he's in so many things that I like.
He's just been in everything, so you don't, like, he just, like, washes by into the background.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I couldn't find any information about the douchebag jock Sean Williams, played by Tim Redwine. He did, like, one movie after this, and also doesn't seem to be online, has a presence or anything at all, so who knows? But then we have Mermaid Mom, played by Stephanie Chantel Dorelli, who at the time in the 90s seemed to be sort of a stunt actress and celebrity trainer. Now she owns a company called Eccentric Talent Management, where you can get performers to come to your parties, including sword swallowers, fire breathers, people on stilts, but most importantly, you can get her to come to your party as a mermaid.
Yes!
Okay, if we ever have some sort of like live Cooler Than Homework meetup or event, we are hiring this woman to come be a mermaid.
That can be one of the Kickstarter goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Paying for her fee.
And my last two little shout outs. One was going to be Scully from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because that's cool. He just plays a random guy in the dock, like Sari said. But then we also have, which I mentioned at the end of last episode, in line at the water fountain, waiting impatiently, a young, uncredited Kristen Stewart.
Oh.
You mentioned that this was going to happen, and I totally did not catch her.
I also did not.
Yeah, also same.
She is, if you're looking for her, I was helped out because I was watching with Devin, my fiance, who like remembers this movie very well and remembered the exact scene when I mentioned it to her of like, oh no, there's a point in the movie where he's really drinking a lot of water and he's at the water fountain for a really long time. And if you're looking as they go down the line, like the second girl they show has this little bob cut and she's like, I don't know, 6-7 years old, and it's definitely Kristen Stewart.
Weird.
But yeah, that's where those people are now. Kristen Stewart's obviously, you know, up to more things.
She's got some stuff going on.
Yeah, she's busy.
It is now time to talk about this movie, but first, nostalgia check. Do you remember watching this movie before being tasked with watching it for this podcast?
No.
Ooh.
I do. And in fact, the scene where like she comes to and she's like, you're telling me that you all think he's a mermaid? And they all go, merman. Like that was so deeply ingrained in my brain that it was like almost like I had a physical reaction to watching it again. Like, oh my gosh. And it's been in my brain for so many years. So yeah, this is definitely one that I watch and I watched multiple times.
I also remember watching this, though maybe not quite so strongly.
Not at all. Great, unsurprisingly.
All right, so did you like it? Matt, I'm really curious since this was your first experience with the 13th year.
Yes, I really, really liked it. Some maybe not great acting aside, I don't know if this is necessarily my favorite DCOM we've watched so far, but personally, I think it's the most well-made DCOM we've watched so far.
Interesting.
Yeah, just purely from like a filmmaking side of things, like editing, shooting, storytelling. I think there are moments in this where I kind of, and this isn't like a slight against DCOMs because obviously I love them, but there was moments where I forgot I was watching a DCOM, which I feel like DCOMs have like an energy about them that when you're watching them, it's very clear that you are watching one. And there was some scenes, most notably, when the mom and dad are like arguing in the kitchen and like Cody's on the stairs watching them. It was just like a real moment and it was shot well. And I'm just like, oh, right. No. This is like a Disney Channel movie. This is not like just another movie that came out in the 90s. So good job, Dave Coulier. Best acting of your career.
Honestly, he did such a great job in this movie. I was expecting, because he's so Uncle Joey, that, you know, like seeing him and him not being Uncle Joey, I was very, I don't know, I was like proud of him. I'm proud of you, baby, for like...
Good job not doing a Bullwinkle impression.
Exactly. I enjoyed it too. Again, probably not my favorite of the ones that we've watched so far, but I think that maybe a lot of that has to do with nostalgia, and like just some of like my other favorites were favorites when I was like younger, and so that kind of carries over. But yeah, this was entertaining. I thought too that like it didn't have it was interesting to me in like the lineup of the ones that we've seen so far. You can make an argument for Xenon, but I feel like this was probably the first one that is like not like an underdog or nerd kid story. It was like the cool kids in school on the swim team, and he just has this girlfriend at the beginning, and it's like really cute. And I don't know, the story just felt a little different that way, and there wasn't so much of like a lesson or message. It was just really this kid who was a mermaid, and he was like, surprise, I'm a mermaid, and that was kind of the story. So I found that entertaining.
As an adult watching this movie, I liked it. It was fine, but I think because the story was just this kid becomes a mermaid, it was less fun for me. And I don't know whether it was like the brain space I was in or like my willingness to be excited about mermaids last night when I watched this. But it was okay. I didn't have any standout moments. I wasn't particularly excited by anyone's acting or any parts of the story. Like the mermaid costumes were cool. I liked it when he got scales on his hands. So whoever did the makeup and special effects, great. Or practical effects, I guess. Because the special effects, again, probably good for the time, but very weird. Fin legs, did not like that whole montage of like glancing down leg morph. Very Animorphs. So anyway, this is like middling of DCOMs that we've watched so far. It didn't blow me away, but it was nowhere near the depths of horror that was Can of Worms.
Oh yeah, no.
I would also classify it as middling. I opened up our little ranking spreadsheet. I see that Sari also opened it. It's this moment like we're both in the dock trying to assess how we feel about this movie against the other movies that we've watched. And I think yes, I generally enjoyed this movie. So far, Can of Worms and You Lucky Dog are the only ones that I really actively did not enjoy. And then the others, there's sort of, a scale. This is not Xenon or Brink. Halloween Town, I also just, it lives in my feelings stronger than this movie does. But aside from that, I generally enjoyed this. It was perfectly fine. I will probably never watch it again? ? Although I guess I might have said that before we started doing this podcast. So honestly, what do I even know?
I brought this up earlier, and Nicole told me we should probably wait until this section of the podcast to talk about it. But the dates in this movie, mainly the most important date in this movie of his birthday. Okay. When is his birthday? Because I don't think he was a newborn when he was dropped off on that boat. He looked bigger than a newborn. But yet they celebrate a birthday for him, which I guess is his like gotcha day. And they just like happen to line up with when he's becoming merman. And I know I'm not supposed to think that deeply about it, but I did.
Yes.
I mean, they can't invite you to think about like on his 13th birthday, he begins to change and then be like, but he's adopted and no one knows what his birthday is. you've got to expect that there are going to be some questions.
Everything started happening after the birthday party.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
Except he got thirsty before the birthday party, so maybe like thirst is the first sign of merman.
They were within like a margin of error, like plus or minus a few weeks on his birthday.
Yeah. I don't know. Also, maybe mermaid newborns are just more fully formed babies.
I mean, I can't argue that, I guess.
I'm a biologist, Matt. According to mermaid biology.
I mean, I guess if they have to learn to swim early on, I guess they might need to be bigger.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Go back to the uselessness of a human versus, can exist in water of a fish.
Yeah. But he also was pretty useless.
Yeah.
We're going to go to a weird place of like mermaid infant birth. Like, and I don't want to think about it, so I think that.
But now everyone else is thinking about it.
So
where'd that baby come from?
Really big, well-formed babies, and I'm sorry. I'm going to think about where that baby came from.
Was it an egg?
Definitely an egg, yeah. It's like fish mating. There's a bunch of eggs laid in the ground. Then the gametes get sprayed across the egg. So you have all these eggs with like full big babies in them. They just pop out. And start like floating around because they don't know how to swim.
This is why we're not getting that sequel where he plays a dad.
Oh, I would love it. Speaking of that, I love Jess. And his nerds don't have friends, we have hobbies. I 100% would have related to him as a kid, sticking my face in tide pools. And then being like, this is a totally normal thing to do when you don't have friends. So welcome. I'll show you fish.
He was oddly like self-aware. It was really like charming. Even when he was like, I don't know, saying something loudly in school, I guess talking about being a mermaid or something like that. And Cody was like, shh, keep your voice down. And he's like, oh, sorry. I'm not used to talking to people who have to like watch out for their reputations. It was like little lines like that. They were just like oddly self-aware of like his new friendship and interacting with people that I was like, oh, baby.
Even like with the birthday party, like he shows up and he hears people sort of like making fun of him and he just leaves. He's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to stick around for this. Like, I don't need to tolerate this.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's like, good on you. You know what being bullied feels like, and you're not going to stand up for it. You're going to go enjoy your fish.
Yeah.
His relationship with his dad was also like, they don't really, I don't know, address it, but you can tell like his dad has been consumed by this thing. And there's like a rift between like his dad's obsession and the little kid's interest. And so all their scenes, like when he's like, Dad, tell me about mermaids. And his little eyes light up like, I hope, son. Yeah, I will. They were, I don't know why I was so feelsy about this movie. It gave me a lot of emotions.
I think that's what I was trying to say with like it's well made is like those things worked. Like you said, that weird emotional moment between the moms where they just like stare at each other. You're just like, well, that shouldn't work. That shouldn't like emotionally work, but somehow it does. And I think you're right. Like the scene you're talking about with Jess and his dad, where he sits him down and he's like, oh, you want to hear my stories? Like, oh, okay. Like no one else has ever wanted to listen to his stories, but now his son wants to listen to his stories.
Heartwarming.
I am curious to know what happened to Mama John. Where's Big Mom John?
Big Mom John?
Big John's wife. Where's the mom?
No, I like Big Mom John.
Yeah.
No, don't correct yourself. That was correct.
Just like the timeline of like, okay, he has a fellow 13-year-old child like Cody, who was the mermaid boy that he saw. So he's been sort of exiled from society since he saw the mermaid and freaked out. So at some point in there, Jess's mom was part of the picture. Maybe she left because of his mermaid obsession, but I don't know. I wish they would have at least hinted at it a little bit of like, is that why mom left or something?
Maybe his mom drowned in the ocean, which is why he's so obsessed with mermaids, because it's like,
yeah. And why he won't let his son swim.
You guys, this is a decom. Calm down. Get the fuck out of here.
Too deep.
Yeah. This is a fun movie where a boy becomes a fish.
And it's teaching us about life and family, Nicole. Why are mermaids sticky?
That's a fair point.
I just would like to know. The electric thing they kind of gloss over because it's like, oh, it's like an electric eel. Garbage, but still fine. No explanation for the sticky.
I would have asked you that question. I would have asked you to explain to me the biology of why the mermaids are sticky. So the fact that you are the one asking this question tells me that there is no answer.
It just seems like it's a very Spider-Man power.
Yeah.
And very not a fish. Everything I think of when I think fish, slimy, falls a lot. I don't know, like glides through the water. Sticky is so far away from that list.
Yeah, I think like those first scenes when he's like first realizing something is wrong are very much just straight out of Spider-Man, where he's just picking things up and can't set them down. And you're like, oh, okay, I did not know this was part of being a mermaid.
Yeah, it's like they watched other media, read other media with teen boys going through weird puberties, and they were like, oh, I guess Sticky is one of them.
Think of the scenes we could have.
Yeah. The physical comedy.
To be fair, like 13-year-old boy personal hygiene is not high on the list. So they're just kind of like always coated in a layer of stick.
So the sticky had nothing to do with being a mermaid. Cody was just dirty.
Yeah. Well, so on that note, I was wondering, like, when his parents are giving him the big speech of like, don't go in water. I'm like, he has to shower at some point and no one is addressing this.
Yes. And because he is a 13-year-old boy, surely that would cross everyone's mind, like how much we want to make sure he showers. So
yes. Has anyone seen the new Aquaman movie? Because that's all I could think about while I was watching most of this.
I have not.
I watched it on a plane and I think fell asleep during part of it. But what made you think of it? Just that he also is a merman?
No, but like the whole idea of that he's dropped off by his mom, mermom, at like a lighthouse fisherman place. And like, so the opening scenes of this are very similar to the opening scenes of Aquaman. And I was like, oh, all right. Like, I know this story. I already saw this movie, also on a plane.
Yeah. This is like if Aquaman was less muscly and just like a normal boy.
Yeah, if he was more sticky.
And Uncle Joey was his dad.
My only other thing, I guess kind of related to this, and maybe the answer is just he's a sticky merman, and that's not a very appealing thing. As a Jess, I would have thought if my best friend or my boyfriend was turning into a merman, I mean, it'd be weird, but it'd be cool mostly because it would make my life more interesting. And as a kid, I was just waiting to be whisked away into my magical life that wasn't currently what was happening. So the fact that Sam didn't like it and fainted and then shunned him for a little bit was very strange to me. But maybe I'm the strange one, and I wanted to know what other people's reactions to that was.
I mean, I get it in the sense of, like, yes, this is incredibly weird, but I also am with you. Like, my read is more like I was a weird kid, and it's like that's like I don't look at her and think that her reaction was weird, but also, yes, 100% would have eagerly welcomed the confirmation that I was secretly living in some sort of fantastical story.
Yeah, like Sam has seen The Little Mermaid, and like now she has a mermaid boyfriend.
Yes.
She'd be stoked.
Right?
I think that this is when I started thinking about the fact that like Sam and Cody were like the popular kids. Because again, like had it been a bunch of the weird kids, they'd be like, awesome. But I can imagine that like 13-year-old Sam, like who cares about like popularity and what her friends think, was immediately like, oh, hell no. Now I have a mermaid boyfriend. So that like reaction tracked, but also can't relate at all.
Yeah, I think that like I saw both sides of that where it's like, yeah, she's like sort of got that fickle 13-year-old popular girl vibe going on. But also at the beginning of this movie, she is so into him that it's like, I'm like, oh no, they're inseparable. Nothing can break them apart because even though he is like
they're 13, Matt.
Well, but like I believed in their love.
She gives him a picture of herself.
Yes, that is a boss move.
Matt, is this your decom OTP?
It might no, because I think I don't think he's as cool as she is.
Yes.
So I'm like, So like for me, like she is like super into him. It's very clear she likes him, and he's still doing the like, oh well, I don't know, and I'm like, dude, she likes you. She gave you a picture of herself in a seashell frame. Just accept it. And so, yeah, I don't know. Because she was so into him earlier and he was the one who was kind of standoffish, for her to be the one who like runs away from him later on didn't track for me entirely as well. Like I could see him hiding from her like he did on the beach. Like that made sense to me. But yeah, I also was kind of hoping she'd be like, oh, cool. I am here for you in this weird, troubling time.
This week, in honor of this movie in which a boy's birthday is the moment when he turns into a fish, we are discussing our most memorable birthdays.
Unfortunately, I never turned into a fish, so I don't have that. I am cheating a little bit, and I'm picking two because I have one from when I was a kid. That's my most memorable birthday. And then one from when I was an adult. That's the most memorable birthday. So for when I was a kid, I had a lot of weird parties of like weird themed of like Jurassic Park and country music and Power Rangers and all this stuff. But there was one where I, through family friends, whatever, my brother-in-law worked on the pit crew for a race car driver. And I was a big fan of racing when I was a kid, big NASCAR fan. And for my 5th or 6th birthday, he got the race car driver to bring his race car to my house.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah. And all of like me and my friends got to sit in the race car, and it was super cool.
That's ridiculous. My brain would have exploded if like something that cool but relevant to my interests happened.
Yeah. And then I think the one that sticks with me most as an adult is, oddly enough, the same birthday that I got the mustache clock for, was my 26th birthday, mostly because I went skydiving, and then as soon as I got done skydiving, drove directly to like the family fun center in town, and we did go-karts and laser tagging, and that was all like the weirdest day of my life at that point. So it's like I just fell out of the sky and now I'm doing laser tag. What's happening?
I have two as well. So one is when I was growing up, my older sister got a quince, like the whole shebang, like the big dress, the hall, the food thing. And as my birthday was approaching, I was like, absolutely not. I will not do this. And you will not put me in the middle of all these people in the center of attention. And we will not spend all that money. If you have all that money, you're going to give me the cash. I did not get the cash. But I high key protested a quince. So for my 15th birthday, I had just like planned to go. My mom was like, I've mentioned before, like very, very strict. So like sleepovers were never a thing. But by this time I'm 15. So she's like, why don't you just go spend the weekend and go sleep over your friend's house? So I was like elated. It was memorable for like good and bad reasons. But I think back to this and like what little shits kids are, because I spent so much of that weekend complaining about my mother. And like I would call her and be like, hey, I'm with my friends and we all want to go do, I don't even remember what now, like, I don't know, watch a movie. And she's like, no, I really think you shouldn't, like, come back home, whatever. And I kept like calling her for permission and she kept saying, no. So I was complaining about her the entire weekend. And finally I was just like, I'm going to go home because like she's not letting me do anything. And when I get home, she had like set up the surprise birthday party for me. And the sleepover was like an excuse to get me out of the house. And it was a whole luau and everybody had leis and there was like food and gifts everywhere. She even bought me an outfit. So like they brought me in and rushed me to the back and like changed into my cute little outfit that she had bought me. And all my friends who were with me at the sleepover knew that I had spent like the entire weekend like complaining about my mom. I felt terrible. But also she's a doll, and my older sister helped too. And they put on this like fantastic birthday party for me. And I had like the time of my life. So that was great. Even though I was like, no parties, they were like, okay. And they still gave me a party. More recently, when I turned 30, I was freaking out about turning 30 because it seemed like time had come for me. And I decided that the best way to kind of, mitigate that and just sort of feel better was to really celebrate my 30th birthday. And I did this whole like 30 things for 30 thing. And it was like a good way to just be like, you're going to be fine. And it culminated in a week in New York, and I saw Hamilton on Broadway, and it was fantastic. The hype was real. And I did not feel bad about turning 30 because I was watching Hamilton. So it was a good strategy.
My birthday is usually not memorable because it's at the end of the school year. So it's like late May. In college, people are always taking finals during my birthday, or it was like when final projects were due. So it was very sweet when my friends like would take time to bake me a cake or surprise me with little things like that. But the most memorable birthday was probably, I think it was in 9th or 10th grade. So I don't even know what birthday this is. This is how little I pay attention to my birthday. But I was a camp counselor at the Science Center in Seattle. And over the summer, that usually meant week-long camps. But during the school year, it was sometimes overnight camps for like if the Boy Scouts rented out the Science Center, or if people had, a really big event for some reason. And so I had one of those overnight camps and was really stressed out because it was gearing up towards finals time and I cared about school. And instead of having to ride the bus back, one of my friends offered to, it must have been like later high school then, because one of my friends offered to drive me home. And so they picked me up in Seattle and drove me home. And then like just 6 or 7 of my friends had decorated my house and like talked to my parents about this, and because I never had people over, and just like decorated my house and did a little surprise party. And it was just very sweet. And I probably cried, but it was just like, they care and they took time out of their busy lives to do a thing for me. When everyone is stressed out about tests and things like that.
That is very, very sweet and
that
pure.
That is very sweet.
Sweet and pure and good. My most memorable birthday is all related to my like best birthday gift. And it was during my semester abroad. And so I was, like spending a semester with a bunch of people that I had not known, prior to January when we all showed up. And so the sign, they had this sign commissioned for me. I showed up to class the day of my birthday and like waiting for me in the middle of the classroom. And, there's like 18 kids, so it's fine. Or kids, I say kids, we're all like, this was my 20th birthday. But 18 students in this class. We were all traveling together a bunch, so it's very sort of like a tight-knit kind of environment, So I like arrived at class and they had like draped a I don't know, tarp or something over a chair. And then sitting on the chair was this sign that they had commissioned for me. And then this ridiculous, there's like vodka, like cheap vodka, but the bottle, it was called Magic Moments. But then it was like frosted with like a cutout in the shape of a guitar. And then if you looked through the guitar, there was a kid swimming. Like none of it made sense. Like there's just like so many design elements going on. Yeah. So the whole thing was just like very outlandish and silly, but it was like this element of, I was far away from home and in this kind of, intense and stressful whatever. And this group of people who like really didn't know me that well still went out of their way to do this really like thoughtful and kind thing for me. And that was really lovely. And then that night we went out to a bar that was attached to a gas station. This is like a thing. We're in Cape Coast, Ghana. And so we were at this bar and it was like thundering and lightning and the power went out at one point. And so we're just like hanging out in the dark at this gas station bar. And it was ridiculous, but also I don't know, like I just remember feeling very, very happy at how surreal it was. Like this was an incredibly weird experience that I was having, and I was really, really grateful to be having it. So I think that is probably my most memorable birthday.
Just so many things.
Yeah.
I feel like all three of your most memorable birthdays was like twist after twist after twist. I thought my birthday was going to be this, and then it was this. I love it.
And now it is time to discuss the lessons that we learned from watching The 13th Year. Matt, what did you learn?
I learned that if your child is able to climb on the ceiling, it's probably not just puberty.
My lesson is related. Media in general has taught me to like believe your kid. I feel like if my kid came to me and was like, I'm turning into a mermaid. I don't have kids, but I feel like if I had a kid, I'd be like, oh my God, really? And I would believe them. And any skeptical parent in media obviously doesn't watch TV and or movies or read books, because I feel like I'm so prepared for my kid to be a fish.
Yes. Yes.
Really bringing in the next generation of parents in being ready for your kid to be a fish. They could be whatever they want.
Really, though, it's usually like the cool aunt who does believe them. And that's precisely the role that you get to occupy because you don't have kids.
Amazing.
I learned that nerds can have friends and hobbies. Jess.
Podcast high five.
That's really beautiful. Mine is not beautiful. And the lesson that I learned from Cody's swim coach is that winners don't lose.
Accurate.
All right, Sari, it's time for you to guess the plot of the next movie. Next time on Cooler Than Homework, we will be discussing Smart House.
So Smart House, obviously, is about what Disney in 1999 thought the house of the future would look like. So kind of like, now I have been to Tomorrowland. And they have that like conveyor belt of I don't know what it's called.
Carousel of Progress.
That one. So it's the idea of the future. It's not quite Jetsons because Disney was realistic. So this is the year 2050, which is still felt very far in the future. And they've got like a robot butler maybe who's a little comedian. And they've got the outfit like selector with the buttons. But this is a danger warning of the dangers of robots. When you ask your house to do too much, then it starts rebelling against you, and wacky antics ensue when the house starts like making them smoothies that don't taste good, but it's healthy for the kids, or like chucking ham sandwiches out of the fridge, or picking weird outfits because the house is having fun. Tagline?
The tagline of this movie is "The Cooper's house has a mind of its own."
I'm going to keep riding this roller coaster then. Okay, so the house gets increasingly out of control, and it becomes sort of a humans versus robots standoff, where the Coopers, the inhabitants of this house, I think that they are white picket fence, dog, boy, girl, child, mom, dad, perfect family that needs the perfect house. And then they're realizing like this is their hubris in getting the perfect family, perfect house. Are they really the perfect family? Because they don't communicate with each other. They communicate with the house more than they do each other. The boy plays too many video games, talks to the TV, talks to the robot butler. Everyone talks to the robot butler. The girl, I don't know, does art or something. The mom uses the kitchen to help her cook. The dad props his feet up. And I don't know, like the house takes his briefcase or whatever. So they're like a 50s family, but in the 2050s. And as the house starts to rebel against them, then they have to learn that they love each other more than they love the house. And Smart House ends with them stripping everything out of the house except for their favorite robot butler, Dave. And so like the house is a normal house and it just becomes Smart Dave, the family, and then their favorite butler, The end.
All right.
Great work. I can't wait for you to watch this movie, as always.
Oh, no. I feel like I got the smart house bit, but then probably nothing else. So
I think we're all speechless.
We are all speechless. We're just gonna have to watch it and find out. Thank you all for listening to this episode of Cooler Than Homework. If you are enjoying this podcast, tell your friends about it. There will be a post dedicated to this episode up at snarksquad.com/decom, so you can tell us all of your thoughts about the 13th year, or you can find us all on Twitter. I am at Sweeney Says.
I am at Matthew Gatos.
You can find me at My Name is Marines.
And I'm at C.E. Riley.
Thank you, as always, to Seven Chin for the theme music that is playing us out, and we will see you all again next time with Smart House.